Good morning and welcome to office hours, everyone. I'm just sort of rushing to start, so setting up my screen right now. But while I'm doing that, let me just give a quick update on what's up with me. So, guys, I've been working on this app with my developer, and I have a working version now of I have a working version now of something that imitates the College Board's like Blue Book app, so that's really good. And so if I feed a practice test into it, then um, you should be able to solve that test as if it was like the Blue Book app. So that's the first big win right now. And right now, we're at the next stage, which is to develop a sort of reviewing feature where after you're done with the test, you can go back over the test. And it's an exercise that I've talked about on Reddit. It's an exercise that I've talked about on previous streams in YouTube. It's an exercise that I make all my tutoring students do. It's an exercise that I try to make my group classes do, although I can't make them all do it. Um, what is this exercise? It's going back over your answers one by one and marking your confidence without knowing what the answer is, without knowing if you're right, without knowing if you're wrong, without knowing how many questions you got right, how many questions you got wrong. You're just going back over every single one and marking your confidence, and then you fix your answer on your own if you can with unlimited time. You mark down your final answers and uh, and sort of basically tutor yourself to some extent with unlimited time through that question without knowing the answer. So in some contexts, in some other contexts, this is called blind review. In my classes, I call it confidence retake. So I'm developing an interface that can help you do the confidence retake. And I actually have a prototype of it. It's not what it will look like. I just used an AI application to kind of help me develop the prototype of it, but you'll kind of get a sense of what that looks like. I'm actually going to show it to you uh, now. I'll show it to you now. So give me a sec while I set that up. And guys, welcome to the chat. If you're here, you can just start chatting, and I will look at your questions after I'm done with my quick um, update on what I've been working on. So let me just find it first. Once I find it, I'll switch screens so I can show it to you. Okay, wrong screen. And actually, this can be a little awkward, so I need to change this. Okay, so yeah, so here's the general idea. The general idea is that you can go back over the questions that you looked at. This is not how the actual app is going to look. This is just a Claude prototype, but you go back over the questions. So let's say that you chose B the first time around. Then when you come back to review this question, you look at B and then you measure your confidence, low, medium, high. If you don't, if you're not, if you think it's wrong, you can switch to cross it out, eliminate, and then you can undo and start back at low. And then you could do that for every single. So if you're stuck, let's say you're stuck between A and B, sorry, you're stuck between C and D, and you think maybe D might be more correct, then you can indicate that separately, and then you can make your choice here and go next, right? So this is actually not what the experience is going to look like, but this is going to it's actually a little bit more sophisticated than this, but this is the general this is the more basic interface that I'm kind of building out. So looking forward to it. In the next 2 weeks, we should have some version of this kind of functioning, so that I'll be testing it with my students in my tutoring and my class students. And then after the initial round of tests, then hopefully in about 3 weeks, I'll have a full practice test that I can release to the world. Uh, Once I have the full practice test I can release to the world, you guys will have access to this website where you can solve the practice test and then review it using like predict, match, and defense strategies. Um, and oh, actually, I just realized something. I haven't fully decided who will get access to this early on. Like, so I don't want to overpromise anything right now, but right now, the decision is to give access to everyone who's in my course. So so let me make sure I'm not misspeaking. Right now, all of this, I'm doing all of this for my course. So if you want to join the course, you can get access, early access to the app. Eventually, I'll figure out how to start distributing it to people who are not in the course. Maybe there'll be like a yeah, I mean, if you want access to my practice test, you should be paying for my course. I mean, come on. I each of these practice, every single question that I write takes me somewhere between 40 minutes to an hour because I use some AI to help me with the structuring of it, but at the end of the day, I have to do the writing of it. It's like a lot of work. Every question is so much work to write. It's not easy to write a college board question with unless I'm being lazy and like if I want to be like Princeton Review or some of these other publishers where they kind of ask sort of sloppy questions, then I could probably write one question every like 10 minutes. But if I'm trying to write high quality questions, sometimes they take more than an hour to write a single question. So I would love you for your support for the sweat and blood and tears that I pour into these questions. So yeah, this app will be released to anyone who is in my course, um, so that they can try out the practice tests that I release. Now let's go back to some of the questions that are in chat. G, what made G is asking what made me love reading, and I don't know. I mean, probably you want to hear the real answer? Probably growing up in an unstable environment with very little money, with very few friends. Uh, when I walk outside of my apartment, the likelihood of me actually getting into a physical fight was maybe like 5 to 10% on any given day. Uh, and then if I get into a fight, the likelihood of me winning is also 5 to 10% because I was gonna get the shit kicked out of me. Uh, the My parents both having jobs and being outside of the house all day. The fact that books are way cheaper than doing things like even sports, like sports doesn't have to be super expensive, right? Soccer isn't an expensive sport, but the thing is that my parents are both working, so they can't drive me, so I'd have to walk there if I wanted to walk. If you know, books were just a good way to escape the chaos of my childhood. So I just read a lot when I was growing up. And plus, probably there's a bit of genetics in it. I probably had some books. I probably had some genetics that kind of pre-inclined me towards being curious and wanting to know about the world. And then as a kid, if you asked me why do you love books so much, then I would have said, dude, it's like even as a kid in a pre-AI world, I was like, dude, what people talk about these days, right? These are not like lasting things. These are sort of like temporary interests. you know, they're not like they're not things that have stood the test of time. But if whenever you read a book, it's like you're speaking with somebody from the past and you're becoming closer to something um, that has had impact over, decades or centuries or sometimes millennia, right? And so these are like things that last. It's so it's like amazing that you could be this poor kid living in Las Vegas. Um, with parents who are not fluent at English, but you have these books, and so you can sort of chat with like Dostoevsky or Aquinas or whoever, right? You're like engaging with the thought of people from centuries past, you know. So I love that sort of time travel aspect of books. You can time travel to any period in the world. So that's something I used to say when I was a kid. When I was like, maybe in high school, college, that's kind of the way I thought about reading. Something nice about the predict and match strategy. Wait, hang on. Oh no, Joshua asked a question, which is Joshua says, what about the thing I do with coachees where they don't know the questions they got wrong? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Joshua, but I think you're saying something like with this interface, like what about if you don't know? So this is what it is, right? At this point you don't know what the answer is, but there's no time limit anymore. So uh, you chose you chose B at first, but now you're changing your mind to C and D. But at this point, you still don't know what the answer actually is. And this is how I tutor. When I have my students come to my tutoring sessions, I have them mark up their practice tests with their confidence levels in the answers, and then I get them to annotate. Right now, there's no annotation feature in my prototype, but I get them to annotate to try to clarify their thoughts, and then when they come to my tutoring sessions, I ask them, "So why do you think dog is correct? Okay, what parts of dog, as in D, answer choice D, what parts of answer choice dog can you defend? What parts of answer choice dog can you not defend, which are kind of iffy?" And then I kind of um, work them through the question. And ideally, what happens is with just purely neutral questioning, with no teaching whatsoever, with just these like sort of cues, these students will be able to solve their answer on their own. And that's the way that's ideal. That's the experience that I want to replicate in the tutoring sessions. Although sometimes you're just lacking knowledge. Like sometimes you don't know what a tragedy is versus a comedy versus a history play. Sometimes you don't know what like fluorescence is, and so that changes. You have to actually like know some stuff. Sometimes you don't know some grammar, and like these sentence structures are messing you up and throwing you off. So I have to teach that stuff. So, but if you already have all the knowledge, then yeah, like with purely neutral cueing or questioning, you should be able to get to the correct answer on your own. And that's what I try to do with my tutoring, and that's what I will eventually try to do with my software. So, call me Jeremy saying something nice about the predictive math strategy is yeah, it is useful on other tests. It's useful. It's like I think the time when I first made the realization that the entire test taking industry, the entire test prep industry was teaching it all wrong. Like I already kind of knew that I didn't like the way it was being taught, but I didn't really have the confidence in it. I didn't really have the confidence to kind of name my own strategy a whole separate thing until when was this now? Until around 2016. So 2016, I was 5 years into my teaching journey. And in 2016, I was thinking of leaving teaching. I was thinking of going back to America and going to law school. So I took the LSAT and I did very well very quickly. I got a very high score in 1 month. And the thing about the LSAT is that they don't give you any time to read all of the answer choices. Like you don't have the time to read all four answer choices and double. If you have to, if you have to read all four answer choices and double check all four answer choices more than like three times on an LSAT, uh, either either you're a normal human being and so you're just going to run out of time like me, or you're a super genius and so you are so you were never going to struggle in the first place anyway. It doesn't really matter. But for me, like I'm not a super genius. That's crazy. So I still need the time to process the passage. Uh, and by the time I'm reading ABCD, I just don't have the time to double check everything. I have to predict the answer and I have to just match it. I have to move on. And that's where the realization came in 2016. After that, I see Josh was asking me how long I've been tutoring. Actually, after that, I stopped tutoring for a while. I worked in product management for software companies for a couple years, and then I came back in 2020. So I guess I've been full-time teaching since 2011 to 2016, and then 2020 to 20 now. So I'm like 10 years full-time, but I was part-time since 2020, 2011. So that makes me 14 years at this point. 14 years of tutoring experience. Yeah, so let's go back to it is totally applicable. The whole reason I teach predict and match is because of the LSAT, which is much harder than the SAT. So if it works for the LSAT, it works for the SAT. In fact, it works for anything that's reading comprehension. So thank you for sharing that. Wei Ming is asking, how do I prepare for SAT vocab? I mean, uh, like. First of all, any vocab is better than no vocab. Okay, so I'm not gonna shit on like the vocab lists. If there's a vocab list and you want to study it, just do it. All right, because I don't really know your vocabulary level. Like that may be what you need right now. In fact, even in my group classes at my academy, where I'm not the one that designs the entire class experience, like the academy does, but my students in my academy, they're studying like 100 words every day. So if they come to class three times a week, they're studying 300 words a week. Um, Now, is that super efficient? Maybe not. It's maybe not the most efficient, but it is effective. I mean, you might spend a lot of time memorizing words and then forgetting it like a week later. But just through sheer volume and repetition, they are going to know a lot more words, these students. They're going to know way more words by the end of the course than compared to the beginning of the course. So if you're going to use the vocab list, just use the vocab list and just commit to it. You don't have to agonize about how to study it. Just start studying. Any vocab is better than no vocab, right? So that's my general advice for you. Now, beyond that, I think there's the way that I actually study vocabulary when I'm learning like a new language or when I'm entering a new domain. And it's actually so stupid that you might be surprised at how stupid it is. But let me create a mock-up for you real quick of what it would look like. Okay, this is the extremely this is my extremely lazy way of studying vocabulary. So this is from about 2 years ago now, when I was in Japan for 2 months, and I didn't take a course. I didn't do any like language study. I just learned Japanese by meeting people, and mostly I was meeting these people at bars. So if any of you know Japanese, there might be some sort of like R-rated, X-rated words here. I actually had to delete some, but at the very beginning, when I'm starting to learn words, I literally just list the words. I literally just list the words. Do you know why? It's because when I'm just listing the words, it only takes me like 5 seconds to write it down. Like I can literally have my phone while talking to someone at the bar, while drinking a drink, and then just be like, wait, what was that word you just said? And then they'll say something, yeah, furugia or whatever, right? Dude, I haven't spoken Japanese in 2 years, so this is gonna be awful. And actually, I forgot what all these things mean. I actually forgot all of these words. Is shiranai like a politeness thing? I forgot. I forgot like this is like a really a common word, but I forgot this word. Anyway, it's been 2 years. I haven't used Japanese in 2 years. But what happens is I actually input the word in like a couple seconds. It doesn't take me a lot of work to input the word, right? I just stop the conversation briefly and I write it down, and then I just keep talking. And when I go, what happens is that as the list gets longer and longer and longer, right now it's only like, let's say it's only 20 words, but once it gets to like 30, 40, 50 words, you'll start noticing patterns that some of these words kind of belong together. And so when that happens, I'll start putting those words into one group, okay? And then they that actually helps me remember what they mean. Now I actually do know some of these words, not all of them. And this might be a bad word, I'm not sure. But like I know that this is a word for friend. I know this is a word for somebody who frequents a bar. Majime, I forgot. I think Majime is like a nice person or like a person who studies a lot, like who like follows the rules, something like that, I think, right? But like this is like, I start developing like clusters of words naturally. And so these are words that you use when you're entering. So I didn't even learn numbers actually when I was in Japan for 2 months, right? I didn't even learn all the numbers, but I did learn five of the numbers. 2件目, 2件目, 3件目, 4件目, 5件目, right? Because because I would hear these words and then I would add them to the list, and then I would start clustering them into certain functions, right? Affirmations, like words that you can use to, pleasantries, words that you can use in polite situations, or words that you can use to like compliment people, or words that you can use to describe yourself, right, like situations. So basically, I'm creating like my own vocab textbook, basically, as I go. And and again, the first big benefit is number one, it takes only 5 seconds to add a word. Okay, takes only like it's so easy to add a word that I'm constantly adding words. And that's that. How does that apply to you guys? When you are right now, when you're seeing a word that you know what you guys do? You completely, let me say that one more time. When you see a word that you don't know on the SAT, do you know what you guys do? Nothing. You do nothing. You look at it and you ignore it. And you don't you don't stop. You don't you don't copy and paste it anywhere. You just let it be. Oh my God, what a waste. What are you doing with all your time? You know what I mean? Like, do something. If you don't know a word, do something. So the first thing is to take 5 seconds and paste it into a list. Now, what happens if the list gets kind of unwieldy, it gets kind of long? Then you start clustering them into groups. But how do you even cluster them into groups? It's because every time you go back to the list, there's two reasons why you go back to the list. The first reason you go back to the list is to add a new word. And then when you add that new word, you actually start trying to add. I try to add words. Well, it depends on how much time I have. If I don't have time, I'll just add it to my inbox at the top. I'll just put it here, new word. But if I have about like a minute, then I will scroll down and I will try to put the word next to another word that's similar to it. So If a yokata, which I think is nah, I don't remember. But if it's similar to ponkotsu, which it's probably not, it's almost certainly not, then I'll instead of putting the yokata up here, I'll put it next to the ponkotsu down here, right? I'll put it next to each other for now. But what does this do? Every time I come back, I'm actually thinking about the words that I previously learned. So this is automatically inbuilt review. I'm reviewing every time. And then what happens if I don't know a word? Then if I don't know a word, right? In this case here, if I don't know a word, I can just use look up, and then I have no idea. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. I wonder if I wrote the wrong thing. Actually, now I'm scared that this is like some like adult thing because a lot of the language that I learned was from bars. So I was learning like a lot of like like sex related terms or like dirty jokes and stuff. So I wasn't learning the polite Japanese all the time. So I'm kind of scared to look some of these things up right now. But anyway, but but whenever you don't know a word, I think you'll notice something that's kind of unique about my vocab list. What is in all vocab lists that is not in my vocab list? The definitions. I don't have definitions in my vocab list, and I do that on purpose. Do you know why? Can you guess why I don't have definitions in my vocab list? Because it forces me to remember it. And if I don't remember it, it's okay. I can still figure it out. I can figure it out by looking it up, right? I can look it up and I could, okay, hazukashi or whatever. I forgot how to pronounce this. That's, but what, but once I look it up like 10 times, 20 times, it's actually embarrassing. I'm like annoyed that I looked at this word and I keep forgetting this word. So naturally, just because of how annoying it is that I keep looking up the same word over and over, I start memorizing it better. I start prioritizing it more. Okay. So this is like not as sophisticated as Anki, which is like a really sophisticated and very intelligent way to like learn a massive number of words. This is my sort of like lazy Anki with no algorithms, and the review is built in because I come back to a list. I come back to the list to either add a word or to recall a word to find a word that I learned before. And every time I do that, I'm like re-engaging and I'm re-quizzing myself on the words. And this is how I actually study vocabulary. Okay, that's it for the stream. It's been 30 minutes, so I'm gonna head out. If you didn't ask me any questions and you couldn't, you were a little shy, you didn't know what to ask, just don't be scared. You can ask me in the next stream or you can ask me in the Discord channel. If you're curious about tutoring, about group classes, or about the online course, I'll just like state like for July of 2025 what the situation is. With my group classes, so with my tutoring right now, I'm basically almost fully booked, so I don't really have a lot of time. I'm prioritizing people who can be on a weekly schedule, either 3 times a week, 2 times a week, or 5 times a week. And each class is 2 hours long. The price is $250 per class, so just be aware it's not cheap. And then there's like the group classes. If you want to be involved in my online group classes, just let me know. It is hang on, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. So it's an online Zoom class, and you're going to be with a bunch of other people. Um, it's an online Zoom class. It's a hybrid class, though, so I'm actually teaching a physical classroom. I have a relatively decent technological setup, so it's not going to be like shit audio or anything like that. But you can learn. You can just copy my techniques for the SAT there, and then if you that one's not as expensive as tutoring, but it's still fairly expensive. And then the cheapest option is obviously my online course, which right now is $25 a month. So for my online course, there's not a lot of practice. You can just learn. The main thing that you learn from my online course is just the techniques that I teach. And it's techniques, and I don't even demonstrate it that much, right? So that's the main drawback right now. My online course is kind of bare bones. It's really just all the lectures of how I do things um, without a lot of practice built in. But eventually, as I develop the app first, and then I develop the practice tests, and then and then I'm going to go back to a course, and I'm going to add more course content to it. You'll be able to just rely more and more on the course. Right now, it's still in development. But if you want to just learn what the techniques are, that's $25 a month. Okay, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep on learning, keep on growing. Peace.